Welcome to the Funeral Program Site podcast.
It's great to be here. This is definitely one of the most specific, yet I think universally relevant topics we've ever really tackled on one of these deep dives.
It really is. I have to be honest with you, and well, with everyone listening, usually when we sit down here, we're preparing to zoom out,
The big picture.
the big picture. We're looking at macroeconomics or these broad strokes of history or, shifting tech landscapes. But today feels very different. Today, I feel like we're zooming in. We're getting out the microscope and we're focusing on a single, specific, maybe 1 square foot piece of real estate.
A square foot of real estate that, oddly enough, most people have probably stared at for, I don't know, minutes at a time without ever truly seeing it.
Exactly. We are talking about the interior of the casket lid, specifically a product that's known as a casket panel insert.
Right.
And I can just hear our listeners now. They're thinking, okay, funerals, I have a mental checklist. I think about the flowers. I think about the eulogy. I'm worried about the music, the pallbearers. I don't think I have ever once stood at a visitation and thought, wow, let's talk about the interior design choices on the inside of that lid.
And that's sort of the paradox of good design in this kind of space, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's meant to be there. It's meant to set a tone.
Yeah.
But it often does that subconsciously.
Yeah.
You register the feeling of the space, but you don't necessarily, analyze all the individual components.
True.
However, today, our whole mission is to pull that one specific puzzle piece out of the box, literally and figuratively, and really look at it.
We are, and we're basing this deep dive on just a comprehensive stack of information we've got from the funeral program site. For anyone who doesn't know, they're basically the encyclopedic source for this whole niche. We've gone through their articles on material composition, their really detailed product listings, their FAQs, installation guides.
All of it.
All of it. And the goal today is, I think, pretty straightforward. We want to unpack how a simple board, because functionally that's what it is, right? A board can transform a standard kind of industrial casket into a tribute that is just hyper-personalized.
And along the way, we're going to clear up a massive, I would call it a linguistic and technical misconception.
Oh, yes.
I would wager that 90% of the people listening to this, and I'm including you in this, before we did the research,
Oh, absolutely me. 100%.
have a fundamental misunderstanding of the difference between a casket and a coffin.
I really did. That section of the research just blew my mind. I was using those words interchangeably my entire life.
Everybody does.
I just thought one was a fancier word for the other. But apparently, if you mix them up in this context, you can make a pretty expensive mistake.
A mistake that could ruin the whole visual tribute. We'll get to that geometry lesson in a little bit.
Okay, before we get to the geometry, let's start with the object itself. Let's just ground this for everyone. When we say casket panel insert, what are we actually holding in our hands? Physically, what is it?
Okay, so if you strip away all the emotion for just a second and look at the engineering of it, a casket panel insert is a decorative panel.
Right?
And it's designed to fit inside the cap. That's the lid of a casket. So just visualize a visitation or a viewing.
Okay.
The casket is open. The lid is raised up. That interior surface is now facing the room. It's facing the mourners. It's facing the family. That is the canvas we're talking about.
Right. And usually if the family doesn't do anything, if they just go with the, let's call it the default setting, what's in that space?
Usually it's just the standard interior fabric. It'll match the pillow. It might be some, pleated satin, maybe some velvet or crepe that the manufacturer installed back at the factory.
Yeah, it's pretty neutral.
Very neutral. It's beige or white or soft pink. And it's fine. It's perfectly fine, but it is generic. It's designed to offend no one, which by definition means it rarely says anything specific about the person who's actually inside.
It's the hotel art of the funeral world.
That is a very, very apt comparison.
Yeah.
It's generic by design. The casket panel insert is made to either overlay that fabric or, in some cases, replace the standard panel entirely.
Okay.
It steps in to become the primary visual element in that space.
So in my head, I'm kind of picturing a poster. Is that a fair comparison? Is it like taping a nice poster to the wall?
That's the comparison a lot of people reach for, but it's actually misleading. And importantly so, the source material from the funeral program site is very, very specific about this.
About the material.
About the material composition. This is not paper. This is not a poster.
Yeah.
This is, and I'm quoting here, sturdy hardboard.
Okay, so why does that distinction matter so much? Why can't I just print a nice photo on some cardstock and, tape it up there?
Well, think about the environment for a second. A funeral home, a church, a mausoleum. These are, to some degree, uncontrolled environments.
Right.
Temperature, humidity.
Exactly. You have humidity, you have gravity working against you for hours, sometimes even days if it's a multi-day visitation. If you use paper or, thin cardstock, what
That's
happens?
going to ripple, it'll sag in the middle, the corners will curl up.
Exactly. And in a moment, that is supposed to be about dignity and, well, perfection. Seeing a tribute that is sagging or peeling off the lid is just, it's a disaster.
It looks cheap.
It looks cheap. It looks like an afterthought.
It breaks the spell.
It breaks the spell.
Yeah.
Precisely. The hardboard construction is vital because it's rigid. It needs to lie perfectly flat and align with the contours of that casket lid without buckling at all.
Okay.
And there's another constraint here that's really interesting, and that's adhesives.
Adhesives, you mean like glue?
Right. Glue, tape, whatever. You generally do not want to be gluing things to the very expensive fabric interior of a casket, whether you bought it or you're renting it.
Ah, I didn't even think about rental caskets. Exactly.
Huh.
And especially if, and we can touch on this later, you might want to remove it. You
Yeah.
can't use duct tape. You can't use super glue. The insert has to rely on its own rigidity and a really precise fit to stay in place.
So it just sort of tucks in.
It often just tucks into the existing rim or the grooves of the lid, so it has to be sturdy enough to support its own weight and stay put, but also light enough that it doesn't make the lid top-heavy.
That's a real balancing act.
It is. It's lightweight, but it holds its shape. And it's one of those details that people would never think about until they tried to DIY it and realized their paper poster was, falling down in the middle of the service.
That would be mortifying, just absolutely mortifying. Okay, so we know what it is, but I want to dig into the why.
The emotional core.
Yeah, funeral planning is already incredibly stressful. I've been there. You have a million decisions to make in like a 48-hour span. Why does this one matter? Why add one more decision to that pile?
It represents a really fascinating shift that we're seeing in the funeral industry as a whole. I think we're moving from an era of what you could call decorative excess to an era of intentional personalization.
Okay, unpack that for me. What was decorative excess?
Go back 20, 30 years. A good funeral, a high-end one, was defined by opulence.
Sure.
Heavier woods,
Mahogany.
bronze caskets, gold handles, more flowers than you could count. It was about showing respect through the expenditure of money on luxury materials. It was a status symbol.
Right. You honored your loved one by buying the Cadillac of caskets.
Exactly. But now, the value proposition has really shifted. The currency of modern mourning, I think, is identity.
Identity.
It's not about how expensive the box looks. It's about how much the entire experience feels like the person we lost.
I like that.
The source material uses a phrase that I actually jotted down because I thought it was so powerful. It calls the panel, insert, a final visual tribute.
That phrase stuck with me too, a final visual tribute. It sounds heavy, but it's also kind of beautiful.
Think about the user experience, if we can even use that term for a funeral of the family.
Okay.
You're the chief mourner. You're standing there at the casket receiving guests. It's an incredibly difficult, heavy moment. It's awkward, it's painful. Your eyes need somewhere to rest.
You can't just stare at the deceased the entire time.
Right.
That's too much.
And staring at a blank wall of white satin offers no comfort. It's just a void. The expert commentary we read suggests that this panel serves as a focal point for grief.
How so?
If you're standing there and you look up and you see an image that reflects peace or their faith or a specific happy memory of that person, it grounds you.
It anchors you in who they were, not just in the fact that they're gone.
It grounds you with imagery of love. It tells you this is still them. It's not just a body in a box. It's a person who loved these things.
Yeah.
It warms the whole space.
I love that. It takes the coldness out of what is, at its core, an industrial object. But, speaking of the object itself,
Uh-oh, here comes the geometry.
we have to pivot to the technical side. We need to get to this aha moment about the container. Because I read this section of the source material, and I actually stopped and said out loud, wait, really?
You're talking about the great casket versus coffin debate?
Yes. I use these words interchangeably. I think pretty much everyone does. We say, put the final nail in the coffin, but then we say, open casket funeral. We just mix and match.
All the time.
But the funeral program site is so strict about this. Panel inserts are only for caskets, never coffins. Why?
It comes down to geometry and construction history, and once you hear the explanation, you'll never unsee it. You'll be that person at dinner parties correcting people.
Okay, lay it on me. What is the actual functional difference?
Let's start with the coffin. If I ask you to picture an old Dracula movie or a classic Western, maybe a cartoon from the 19th century, what does the box look like?
Well, it's shaped like a human body, right? It's wide at the shoulders and then it tapers down and gets narrow at the feet. It's what, six-sided, hexagonal?
Precisely. That is a coffin. The very definition of a coffin is that anthropomorphic, tapered shape. Wide at the shoulders, narrow at the feet.
Okay.
And traditionally, coffins are constructed entirely of wood. The interior, the exterior, it's a wood structure. It's a joiner's box.
And the lid, what about the lid?
The lid is usually a flat piece of wood that just lifts off, or it might have some simple hinges, but, and this is the absolute crucial part, because of that tapered shape and the traditional all-wood construction, they do not typically have an upholstered interior lid panel system.
So when you open a coffin lid, you're just seeing the raw wood inside.
Or maybe a very basic cloth lining that's just tacked directly to the wood. But there is no frame. There's no inset area designed to hold a rigid decorative board. There's literally no place for a rectangular insert to go.
The geometry doesn't work.
The geometry makes it impossible. There's no negative space for this product.
Okay, so then what makes a casket different?
A casket is rectangular, always. If you look at it from above, it's a perfect rectangle. It does not taper. It doesn't mimic the body shape.
Okay.
And structurally, it's designed more like a piece of fine furniture. It has a hinged lid, and the interior is heavily upholstered. The lid itself has fabric panels, padding, a rim.
So it's designed with that space in mind.
It's essentially designed with a picture frame built right into the lid that is made to accept these inserts.
So a casket is designed like a piece of upholstered furniture, like a sofa or a bed, whereas a coffin is more like a, I don't know, a well-made shipping crate.
A dignified crate, but yes, that's the functional difference. The casket was actually invented and marketed in the 19th century, specifically to move away from the grim shape of the coffin. They wanted it to look more like a jewelry box.
So the takeaway here is absolutely vital for anyone shopping for this.
It is rule number one of this deep dive. If a family has ordered a traditional, old-school, tapered coffin, which is rarer in the U.S. now, but it still happens especially with certain cultures or, say, eco-friendly burials.
Right.
This personalization option is completely off the table. You literally cannot fit a rectangular hardboard insert into a tapered wooden lid.
That is such a critical know before you buy detail. Just imagine ordering a custom panel with your dad's photo on it, waiting for the overnight shipping, rushing to the funeral home, and then realizing you bought a coffin and it physically doesn't fit.
It would be a heartbreaking logistical error. And in the middle of a funeral week, you just don't have time to fix that kind of mistake.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so assuming we have a casket, we've checked the box, we've got our rectangle, but apparently the complexity doesn't end there.
No, it does not.
Not all rectangles are created equal. The sources go into a lot of detail about sizing and something they call couch styles.
Yes. This is the next layer of complexity. And again, the terminology can be really confusing if you aren't in the industry.
Couch is such a weird word to use here. When I see full couch, I'm thinking of my sofa in the living room. Why is it called that?
It harkens back to the idea of the deceased reposing or sleeping, like on a couch. It's a euphemism, really, like so many things in this industry.
Yeah.
But practically, couch refers to the lid style and how it opens.
Okay, break it down for us.
A full couch casket means the lid is one single continuous piece. When you open it, you see the deceased's entire body from head to toe. The lid is just one giant door.
Got it. One big canvas for the insert.
Exactly right. So if you have a full couch casket, the panel insert needs to be one large continuous panel to fill that entire visual field. It has to span the full length of the interior.
And what's the alternative?
The half couch. This is actually much more common in the United States.
Okay.
The lid is split into two sections, usually right around the waistline. During the viewing, typically only the upper half of the head section is opened. The foot end stays closed.
So in that case, you only need an insert for the top half.
Exactly. The insert is sized only for that upper cap. And if you ordered a full couch insert for a half couch casket, it wouldn't fit. It would be twice as long as the opening.
And vice versa, I assume.
Oh, vice versa would look ridiculous. If you put a half couch insert into a full couch casket, it would look like a tiny little postage stamp floating in this huge empty space.
And then there's a third category, the oversized caskets.
Yes. We have to account for physical reality. Caskets designed for larger individuals, they're often called oversized or maybe 28-inch, 29-inch caskets. They have different interior dimensions. They're wider.
Which means a standard insert would leave gaps on the sides.
Correct. You'd have inches of the basic fabric showing on the left and right.
Right.
And it would just look unprofessional.
Right.
And that's the key word here, unprofessional. We're talking about a tribute. You don't want it to look like a DIY project that went wrong. You want it to look integrated, like it was made for it.
That explains why the funeral program site really emphasizes the custom cut-to-size part. One size fits all is a complete lie in this industry.
It just doesn't work. A panel that's half an inch too small, it might reveal the mechanics underneath. A panel that's half an inch too big bumps against the hinges and it won't lay flat. It has to be precise.
Speaking of precision and logistics, I was genuinely surprised by the speed of all this. I always assume custom stuff takes weeks, allows 6 to 8 weeks for delivery. But the source says if you order Monday through Thursday, you can get overnight shipping via UPS.
That speed is a pure necessity of the industry. It's not a luxury. It's an absolute requirement.
Sure.
Death is rarely planned far in advance. The window between a passing and the service is often just a few days, maybe 3, maybe 5. Suppliers like the funeral program site have to operate on a print and ship immediately model.
It's high-stakes manufacturing.
It really is. They can't just say, oh, the printer's down, we'll get it to you next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, the funeral's over.
So you have to know your casket type full versus half before you click buy, and you have to do it fast.
It's absolutely essential.
All right, let's get to the fun stuff, the visual stuff, the themes.
Yes.
Because this is where I feel like the personality really, really comes through. This is where the deep dive gets colorful. I was scrolling through the list of products mentioned in the source material. I think there are over 68 different collections, and the range is just wild.
It really runs the gamut from the deeply sacred to the completely unexpected.
Let's start with the sacred. I assume that's the bread and butter of this industry.
It is. For many people, faith is the central pillar of their life. It's the hope they hold on to. So the casket panel reflects that. You have themes like White Lily Cross, Kingdom, or simply praying hands.
And angels, doves, that kind of classic religious iconography.
Right. If the funeral is in a church, or if the person was deeply religious, these themes act as a kind of visual prayer. They fit the setting, they offer that traditional comfort we talked about earlier.
It sends a signal.
It signals to the room, this person is safe. This person is in a better place.
And then you have the nature themes. I saw one clip, Purple Lilies, which was described as a valley of tulips with a sunset, and tropical island.
Soft beach with glistening ocean. These are often for people who found their, let's say, their church in the outdoors.
Right.
It changes the atmosphere of the casket from being a box to being a window.
A window? I really like that analogy. Instead of looking down into a dark enclosed space, you're looking out onto a beautiful beach.
Exactly. It evokes tranquility. It's less about this is the end and more about this is a peaceful place. It subconsciously helps the mourners just breathe a little easier.
But then we get to the section that made me smile. And honestly, it made me rethink what a funeral can even be. The personality inserts.
Yeah.
Because look, not everyone is defined by lilies or sunsets. Some people are defined by burgers.
You saw the outdoor grilling panel?
I did. Outdoor grilling, a custom panel for the master of the BBQ. I just imagine a family standing there, tears in their eyes, and they look down and they see a grill and maybe some charcoal smoke in the background. They just have that little moment of a smile.
Yes.
Yeah, that was him. He loved that grill.
And that is the power of specificity. It breaks the tension. It acknowledges the humanity of the person. It says, we aren't just burying a generic ancestor. We're burying the guy who made the best ribs on the block.
Oh.
The guy who wore the kiss the cook apron.
It celebrates the joy of their life, not just the sanctity of their death.
Precisely. And there was also Western cowboy.
For the rancher or, the Western enthusiast.
And baseball.
Right. And really specific military ones, too. U.S. Navy with the flag and the ship, U.S. Army. These aren't just hobbies. For so many people, this is their core identity. It's about service, about sacrifice.
It communicates what they were proud of.
I saw some very specific bird ones, too. Hummingbirds, cardinals.
And, there's a belief in many cultures that cardinals represent visitors from heaven.
Oh, that's interesting.
So even that choice, which on the surface just looks like a nature theme, might be a really deep and spiritual message for the family. I'm still with you.
Wow. That adds a whole other layer. And it's not just a stock background, right? You can customize these things.
Oh, completely. The sources mention 2-photo, 3-photo, even 4-photo collages. You can add specific text names, dates, a special tribute text.
So you could have the outdoor grilling background, but then you could overlay a photo of him actually at the grill at the 4th of July party and his name right there.
Precisely. And that's where it becomes a true one-of-a-kind artifact. And it moves from being a product you buy to being a memory you create.
So let's talk about cost. Because custom usually equals expensive, my brain automatically adds a zero to the price tag when I hear custom printed hardboard. But I was looking at the pricing in the source.
It's surprisingly accessible, isn't it? The standard pricing mentioned is around $179.95.
Which, in the grand scheme of a funeral where average costs are in the thousands, sometimes 10,000 plus, is a pretty small line item.
It really is. It's a fraction of the cost of the flowers. It's certainly a fraction of the cost of the casket itself.
Right.
And yet, for the amount of visual impact it delivers, I mean, it is the centerpiece of the viewing. The return on investment, emotionally speaking, is incredibly high.
It's high leverage, small cost, massive visual and emotional change. So, okay, we've got our panel. It's the right size because we checked if it was a casket and not a coffin. We picked the outdoor grilling theme. It arrived overnight via UPS. Now, how do we get it in there?
Right. The installation.
I'm picturing a grieving family member standing there with, like, a power drill. Do I need a drill? A staple gun?
Put the power tools away. No drills, no staples. This is all designed to be completely non-destructive.
Ah, thank goodness.
The installation is really just placement. The source material explains that it sits directly over the standard cloth. Because it's custom cut to fit so snugly, it usually just press fits right into the rim of the lid.
So the friction is what holds it in place?
Typically, yes.
Yeah.
Or it rests on the existing ridges of the interior upholstery. It's meant to be easy enough that a family member could do it, although, often the funeral director will handle it during the setup.
I bet they appreciate that it doesn't damage their merchandise.
Oh, for sure. And the fact that it's not glued in leads to another really interesting point the source has brought up, and maybe the most important point for the long term.
Which is?
It's removable.
Ah!
This is a huge feature. Think about the timeline. The service ends. The casket is about to be closed for the final time. In a traditional setting, everything inside that casket goes into the ground or into the vault.
Right. You don't get it back. It's gone.
But because this panel is just pressure fitted in there, the family can take it out.
It becomes a keepsake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't take the casket home with you. You can't keep the funeral flowers forever. They wilt. But this panel, this high-quality hardboard print with his photos and his BBQ grill, you can take that home.
What do people do with them?
You could frame it. You could put it in a memory box. Some people display it at the wake or the reception afterwards.
That extends the value of it so much. It's not just for the 2 hours of the service. It's for the, the afterlife of the
It
memory.
just connects the surface to the home. It becomes a genuine heirloom.
Speaking of connections, there's another layer of design coordination here that I found really impressive. The funeral program site doesn't just do these panels. They seem to be building an entire design ecosystem.
They really are. I saw the list. It's massive. Funeral bulletins, gatefold programs, prayer cards, bookmarks.
Even memorial buttons and water bottle labels.
Wait, water bottle labels?
Yes. Custom labels for the water bottles you hand out to guests.
The details matter. But the point is that holistic aesthetic. If you choose the Purple Lilies design for the casket panel, you can get the exact same Purple Lilies design on the program everyone is holding in their hands.
And on the little bookmark they take home.
Exactly. It creates a unified tribute. It feels curated. It doesn't feel like you just grabbed random things from different stores. It shows that real thought was put into the entire environment.
That visual continuity probably helps with that feeling of chaos that surrounds a funeral, When things match, it feels ordered. It feels calm.
It subconsciously signals that things are under control, that this life is being honored with dignity and with order. When the visual language is consistent, it reduces the cognitive load on the mourners.
That's a good way to put it.
They don't have to process conflicting styles. They can just focus on the person.
So who are the people making all these? We've mentioned the funeral program site a few times.
They're based in McKinney, Texas, and the source describes them as the industry leader with over 30 years of experience.
30 years is a long time in the internet age. That means they were doing this long before e-commerce was the standard for everything.
It does. They seem to specialize in both the DIY templates for people who want to print their own things and these physical printed memorials like the panels. They've really bridged the gap between the old local print shop and the modern digital economy.
And I noticed they list their support hours very prominently, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central Time.
And that's crucial. When you're grieving and you're on a deadline, you need to talk to a human. You need to know, will this get here by Friday? The emphasis on that customer service reflects the nature of the business. They know their customers are in a high-stress, time-sensitive situation.
Tight turnaround is just standard in this industry, right?
Hmm.
You can't say, oh, sorry, shipping is delayed, it'll be there next week.
No.
Funerals on Saturday, period. The deadline is absolute.
Exactly. Reliability is the product as much as the board itself. If the product is beautiful but it arrives on Monday, it's completely worthless.
Right. So we've unpacked the what, the hardboard insert, we've unpacked the how, the sizing, the caskets, and we've looked at the who, the provider.
I kind of want to circle back to the why before we close out.
Let's do it.
We started by saying the inside of the casket lid is an overlooked space. But after this whole conversation, I feel like it's actually a huge opportunity that most people miss.
It is. Think about what we said earlier. It transforms a generic space into a quiet statement of love.
A quiet statement of love. I like that. A standard casket is beautiful, sure, but it's industrial. It's a manufactured product. By adding that insert, whether it's the tropical island or the white lily cross, you're reclaiming that space. You are occupying it with the personality of the person you lost.
It's the difference between a house and a home. You're making that final resting place a home in a strange way.
And for the people standing there, staring into that space, trying to process this immense loss, that image gives them permission to remember the joy, not just the death. If you see the grill, you smile. If you see the beach, you breathe. It changes the atmosphere of the room from one of pure tragedy to one of remembrance.
It really does. It's such a simple thing, a piece of board with a picture on it, but the impact is so disproportionate to the object itself.
And that's the definition of good design, isn't it?
It is. I have a question for you, and I want our listeners to think about this too. This is sort of a provocative thought to end on.
Go ahead, I'm ready.
We've talked about all these options, from the sacred to the barbecue. If you had to choose a panel insert for yourself right now, knowing what we know about the options, what would it be? Would you go for the traditional lilies? Or would you go for the outdoor grilling equivalent to make people laugh?
Wow. That is a fascinating question.
Yeah.
It forces you to self-edit your entire life down into one single rectangle.
Exactly. What is the one image that sums you up?
For me, I think I'd want something that makes people smile. Maybe a stack of books or a hiking trail, something that says, I enjoyed this, I had a good run. What about you?
Oh, definitely something specific. Maybe not a grill, but I don't know, maybe a microphone. Or a really good cup of coffee.
Very fitting. Very fitting.
But seriously, thinking about it really makes you realize how much these visual cues matter. It's a chance to make your family smile one last time.
And that is a gift. A final act of comfort that you can leave behind.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a fascinating journey into a niche I really didn't know existed, but now I can't stop thinking about it. It just goes to show there is depth in design everywhere if you really look for it. We appreciate you joining us for this deep dive, and thank you at closing.